In the last video, we exposed why so many people regret buying new cars in 2026. The problem was not just the payment, it was the whole deal. The value dropped fast, the tech got old fast, and ownership started feeling a lot more like rent with a dashboard. Then the comments came in and proved it. One owner said he rebuilt his 2007 Chevrolet Avalanche, upgraded what he wanted, and still felt better because there was no vehicle payment, no kill switch, and no software trap hanging over him. Another said first-time buyers are better off starting with a used car instead. That tells you the trap is real. So today, we get into 10 used cars that still make real sense before buyers get burned all over again. Number 10. Honda Fit. The first thing that matters here is not power, image, or status. It is how much life you can squeeze out of one simple thing without feeling like you settled for a penalty box. That's where this one still surprises people. It's small on the outside, easy to park, easy to feed, and usually easier on tires and brakes than bigger cars that do not actually improve your daily life very much. Then you open the doors, fold things down, and remember that smart design still beats bulk. This is one of those cars that makes you question why so many people keep paying extra just to move air and sheet metal around. Honda Fit is a very practical used buy for people who drive in town, keep a close eye on costs, or just want a car that doesn't make every small errand feel like a waste. It's not trying to impress anyone, that's part of why it works. You sit in it and the car feels honest. You can see out of it, you can use it, you can live with it. And when a car gets the basic things right, old people notice that faster than younger buyers do, because they are tired of paying for styling tricks that wear off in a week. The only caution is simple. Do not buy one that has been treated like a rental car with no care and no records. A good one is a tool. A bad one feels tired fast. Still, when you want low waste and low drama, this is one of the best places to start. The next car costs a little more in many cases, but it gives you a little more dignity without dragging you into nonsense. Number 9. Mazda 3. Some used cars make sense only if you don't care how they feel. They're technically fine, but they wear on you. They buzz, they drone, they look tired before they're old, and after a few months you stop feeling smart and start feeling cheap. That's not what happens here. The shape, the cabin, and the way it moves down the road all feel a step more settled than most small cars. Nothing about it screams for attention, yet it usually feels like somebody cared when they built it. That matters more than people think, because a car you respect a little is easier to keep and easier to maintain properly. Mazda 3 is one of the better used choices for buyers who still want value but do not want their daily drive to feel like a punishment. It often gives you that nice middle ground where the steering feels natural, the cabin does not feel hollow, and the whole car has a bit more grown-up weight to it. In plain terms, it feels like a compact car for people who have already owned enough bad compact cars. That makes a real difference over time. You are less likely to resent it, you are less likely to start shopping again 6 months later because the new used car already feels old. The watch out here is easy enough. Avoid examples that look stylish from 10 feet away but hide poor maintenance, cheap tires, or rough bodywork. This is a car that feels better when it has been owned by somebody careful and worse when it has been used as a fast fashion item. Still, for a lot of people, this is where used buying starts to feel less like damage control and more like a decent decision. The next one is even plainer on the surface, but there is a reason plain keeps winning. If this is hitting home, hit like and tell me which used car actually earned your trust over the years. Number 8. Toyota Corolla. A lot of buyers think this one is boring, and they are right, but they miss the point. Boring is only bad when you're paying a premium for it and still getting headaches. When boring means simple starts, steady fuel use, easy parts, and a car that rarely asks for attention in dramatic ways, boring starts to look a lot like freedom. That is what this car has always sold. Not excitement, breathing room. It's the kind of used car people make jokes about until the first time they need something that just works on a cold morning, in traffic, on a short trip, on a long trip, and again the next day. Toyota Corolla still makes sense in 2026 because it fits the real life of ownership better than a lot of more interesting used cars. Insurance is often reasonable, fuel costs are usually kind, repairs tend to be less frightening than what people see once they wander into used luxury or overcomplicated crossovers. There's also a quiet comfort in knowing almost every mechanic on Earth has seen one before. That matters once a car is older because your peace of mind is not just about how often it breaks, it's also about whether fixing it turns into a mystery hunt. The problem, of course, is that the name has become so trusted that some sellers think every old one deserves a saint's price. It does not. A smart buyer still has to walk away from the overvalued ones. If the seller is charging for reputation more than condition, leave it there. But when the price is fair and the history is clean, Corolla stays one of the safest answers in the whole used market. A little farther down this road, there is a car that used to make some people feel awkward. Now it just makes practical sense. Number 7. Toyota Prius. There was a time when people looked at this one and saw a statement, maybe political, maybe strange, maybe too soft. That fades fast once you start doing the math yourself. Fuel is not cheap, traffic is not going away, and a car that saves money every single week starts to look smarter than a car that only feels cool at a stoplight. That's the shift. Once a used car enters your life as a real expense instead of an idea, the little things become big things. Fewer fuel stops, less pain on long errands, less guilt when you have to leave it idling in bad traffic. Those things add up in a very real way. Toyota Prius belongs on this list because it has moved past novelty and settled into something more useful. It is a practical used car for people who are tired of spending money to prove they are not practical. The shape is still not for everyone, and that is fine. You do not sit in a car like this for style points. You buy it because it can quietly save you money over time without asking for much attention. The best part is that it often attracts a certain kind of owner, somebody who bought it to use, not to show off. That can mean calmer driving, better records, and fewer ugly surprises. Of course, the same common sense still applies. Do not buy one with a foggy history, warning lights, or a seller who talks more than he documents. A used hybrid is not scary when it's been cared for. It's only scary when the car has clearly been neglected and the seller wants you to trust luck. Still, for people who want a used car that lowers the daily burn rate of life, this is one of the strongest plays on the board. The next step is for buyers who want a little more room and a little more calm without crossing into waste. Number 6. Honda Accord. At some point, a lot of people get tired of feeling squeezed. They do not want to climb down into a tiny car, hear every bump, or spend longer drives wishing they had chosen something with more breathing room. That's where this kind of car starts to make sense. It gives you enough space to feel settled, enough comfort to take the edge off daily driving, and enough maturity that you don't feel like you're making excuses for it. That sounds simple, but simple is rare. Plenty of used cars are either cheap and tiring, or comfortable and too expensive to justify. The sweet spot is harder to find than people think. Honda Accord has long lived in that sweet spot for buyers who want a real car without turning the purchase into a lifestyle decision. It's roomy without being bloated, it usually rides well enough to matter, and it has the kind of easy, familiar driving feel that older viewers tend to appreciate because it does not demand anything from you. You just get in and go. That is worth more than flashy features that age badly or giant touchscreens that already feel old. The main reason this one stays strong is that it tends to make sense on the second and third year of ownership, not just on day one. You're less likely to feel trapped by it, you're less likely to get tired of it, you are less likely to be embarrassed by what you paid for, what you got. As always, condition matters more than the badge. A tired one can still become a bill collector, but a cared-for Accord usually feels like money spent by an adult. There's another car in this same lane that often appeals to a slightly different kind of buyer, and it earns its place for a reason. Number 5. Toyota Camry. If the last one feels a little more balanced and a little more alive, this one often feels a little more settled and a little more predictable. That's not an insult. For many used buyers, predictable is the whole point. They're not hunting for excitement anymore, they're trying to avoid being dragged into somebody else's deferred maintenance, somebody else's bad taste, or somebody else's repair nightmare. A car like this appeals to people who want the relationship to stay calm. They want to change the oil, rotate the tires, keep records, and not think about the car much beyond that. There is real value in that kind of peace. Toyota Camry stays on lists like this because it keeps fitting normal life. It is usually roomy enough, quiet enough, and familiar enough that most people can step into one and understand it right away. That matters more than reviewers like to admit. When a car feels easy, people tend to keep up with it better. They do not fight it, they do not resent it, they just use it. That alone can make it a smarter used buy than a more glamorous option that drains your patience over time. The danger, again, is paying too much for the legend. Some sellers act like any Camry with 4 tires and a clean dashboard should be priced like a family heirloom. Do not reward that. Buy on condition, service history, and common sense. Walk away from fake scarcity and emotional pricing. But when the numbers line up, this is one of the best used cars for people who want ownership to stay plain and manageable. A lot of buyers, though, are no longer shopping for sedans at all, and that is where the next part of this list gets interesting. By this point, the pattern should be clear. The good used car is rarely the one that sounds most exciting in the ad. It's the one that still feels sensible after the payment, the fuel, the maintenance, and the second year of living with it. That is where many bigger vehicles fall apart. A lot of them promise versatility, then punish you for it. The next one earns its place because it usually avoids that trap. Number 4. Honda CR-V. This is the kind of vehicle many people end up in after they decide they want to sit a little higher, carry a little more, and stop crouching into a low car every day. That is understandable. Comfort matters, and ease of getting in and out matters even more once you've owned enough cars to know the difference. The problem is that a lot of vehicles in this shape category are not nearly as smart as they look. They can be thirsty, clumsy, oddly expensive to maintain, or disappointing once the newness is gone. That's why the better ones stand out so clearly. Honda CR-V works as a used buy because it usually gives people what they actually wanted from this body style in the first place. It is easy to see out of, easy to live with, and roomy enough for groceries, grandkids, bags, and all the other real-life things that turn a car into part of the house. It doesn't need to be dramatic. In fact, the best thing about it may be that it rarely feels like it is pretending to be more than it is. That honesty matters. A lot of people buy larger vehicles for security, then spend years paying for capability they never use. This one often lands closer to reality. The caution is simple. Watch for the usual used car sins: rough care, cheap replacement parts, poor tires, missing records, and sellers leaning too hard on brand trust. Still, when bought carefully, this is one of the better answers for people who want utility without stepping fully into truck or giant family vehicle territory. There is another path, though, for buyers who want that same usefulness with a little more polish and a little more road feel. Number 3. Mazda CX-5. There are some vehicles that look like they were designed mostly for the lease lot. They photograph well, promise a lot, and then leave you with a cabin that feels thin and a driving experience that gets old faster than the monthly bill. This one usually avoids that. It tends to feel more tied together than many of its direct rivals. The doors shut with a little more confidence, the cabin often feels a little less hollow, the road manners usually feel calmer and more planted. None of that sounds flashy, but it matters a lot once the shine of buying something newer has worn off. Mazda CX-5 is one of the stronger used choices for people who want a practical vehicle without accepting the dull, disconnected feeling that so many modern crossovers bring with them. It gives you the higher seating position many buyers want, enough space for normal life, and a sense that the people who tuned it still cared about how it feels in motion. That last part matters more than a spec sheet suggests. A used vehicle that feels solid tends to age better in your mind. You forgive it more, you keep it longer, you feel less urge to restart the shopping cycle. That is real value, even if nobody can put it in a flashy headline. The risk here is not the basic idea of the vehicle, it is overpaying for the nicer feel and ignoring condition. A pretty cabin does not erase rough ownership, so buy with your eyes open. But when the price is fair, this is one of the better all-around used buys for people who want something useful that still feels like a real product, not a disposable appliance. From here, the list moves into the kind of vehicle people often buy because their life changed, not because their taste did. Number 2. Toyota Highlander. Once families get involved, or long road trips become more common, or carrying people starts to matter more than carving corners, priorities change very quickly. Space starts winning arguments, so does comfort, so does the simple need to load people and things without turning every outing into a puzzle. This is where a lot of buyers get trapped because they think bigger automatically means better. It does not. Bigger can mean more fuel, more tire cost, more insurance, more awkward parking, and more money tied up in a vehicle that mostly hauls empty seats. So the better family vehicle is not always the biggest one, it is the one that gives enough without pushing into excess. Toyota Highlander earns this spot because it has long been one of the more sensible ways to buy room without buying chaos. It tends to appeal to buyers who want to be done shopping after they buy. They want something that can handle family duty, road trips, weather changes, and the normal mess of life without feeling fragile. That is the whole appeal. It's not trying to be a status symbol, it's trying to be useful in a world where useful is getting harder to find. For older viewers, there is another benefit here that matters quietly but deeply. It often feels familiar. The controls make sense. The size is not absurd for what it delivers. You can get in, drive, and understand the vehicle without a long adjustment period. That should not be rare, but it is. The warning is the same warning that follows every trusted name. Do not let the reputation push you into lazy buying. A neglected one is still a neglected one. But a good Highlander can serve for years in the kind of steady way that lowers stress instead of adding to it. The last entry on this list goes in a different direction, and for the right buyer, it may be the smartest move of all. Number 1. Honda Ridgeline. A lot of people buy trucks for the story that comes with them. They like how they look, what they suggest, and what they let them imagine about themselves. Then the reality shows up. Heavy ride, big fuel bill, oversized parking problem, tall step-in, higher tire cost, more money tied up in capability that gets used 3 weekends a year. That is the trap. A lot of truck buyers do not actually need a truck in the way the market keeps telling them they do. They need something useful, comfortable, and honest enough to admit what kind of work it is really built for. Honda Ridgeline takes the top spot because it fits that truth better than most used trucks. It still gives you a bed, it still gives you the practical freedom people want for small hauling jobs, house projects, garden supplies, luggage, and the kind of messy work that sedans and regular crossovers do not love. But it usually does it without the full punishment package that comes with many body-on-frame trucks. It tends to ride more comfortably, drive more naturally, and ask less from the owner in everyday life. That is why it makes so much sense in the used market. It's not pretending to be a farm machine, a rock crawler, or a personal myth. It's a useful thing for people who actually intend to own what they buy. That may not sound exciting, but it is exactly what makes it such a smart used choice. A vehicle like this gets more right for ordinary people than the tougher-looking alternatives that cost more to buy, more to feed, and more to tolerate. And in a market full of emotional purchases dressed up as rational ones, this kind of honesty is rare. Which brings us back to the real point of the whole list. The best used car in 2026 is not the one that gets the most nods in a parking lot. It's the one that still feels right after the first repair, after the first long trip, after the insurance bill, after the fuel receipts, and after the new toy feeling is long gone. That is the test that matters. A smart used buy gives you some room to breathe. It lets you move on with your life instead of constantly thinking about the car. That is what practical ownership looks like. If you've owned one of these, or if a different used car has treated you right for years, say so in the comments. And if you like clear, no-nonsense buying advice for real people, subscribe and stay with us.